Well, now, our second report this evening comes, as promised, from Dublin, which, thanks to the Sullivan Bluth studios, makes strong claim to be the capital of animated film production in Europe. At a time when escalating costs have caused animation everywhere to lose much of its subtlety, the work at Sullivan Bluth has been compared to the golden age of Disney. Well, we were there when the finishing touches were being applied to the feature-length cartoon All Dogs Go to Heaven.
I like the classic fairy tales very, very much, but somehow they're very predictable. I would rather take the format for a fairy tale and tell a story that you have never heard before, but still is in the format of a fairy tale. And so I guess that's basically the difference between Walt Disney Studio and Sullivan Bluth Studios, is we're trying to do stories that you may not have seen before.
Ah, you look like a taste in New Orleans canine gumbo.
No! Don't eat it, please!
How can you expect me to eat a voice as sumptuous as this?
We needed a character that was both mean and threatening and created a lot of jeopardy. And at the same time, when his personality really came out, he was a fun-loving gator. One of the things that this gator was so good at, and one of his, I say, his weaknesses or his fetishes was he loved opera, loved to sing. But since he lives in a very wet world, we said, what would make this gator extremely fun to look at? And we came up with something I think was kind of fun. What if he was a swimmer and he loved to swim, much like you thought there was a swimming star years ago named Esther Williams, and we actually patterned the gator after that swimming star.
Now, this particular sequence is a production number, Let's Make Music Together. So we were dealing with a song right from the start, and we had the wonderful voice of Ken Page as this impresario alligator. And Don Bluth created this character, this alligator, who at the start of the sequence is supposed to be an evil alligator that's eating these animals. So Charlie has to get out of the peril and not be eaten by the alligator. That's one of the points I had to put across as the storyboard man. The second point is Anne-Marie, the little girl in the picture. We had to put her in peril to the point where she's going to be submerged in water. So at the end of the sequence, she's going to get sick. So that's another point I had to put across as a storyboard man. And the third is to just do an entertaining sequence with the production number.
I've just been given this background key, which is a miniature version of what the final background is going to look like. And as a background painter, my job is to make the finished background, which is considerably larger, look as much like the key as possible, or even better if I can. And I start by taking the layout drawing, which is a detailed drawing of what the background will be, and tracing it down on a board, and then go in and proceed to paint it with an eye for making the character show up over the background. I believe there's probably between 800 and 1,000 backgrounds done on each picture, really. And each person probably does between one a day or one every 2 days, depending on the complexity of the actual painting. It takes us between 9 months to a year and a half to do the backgrounds for an entire picture.
This is the story sketch which I would receive from Dan Kenster, the directing animator, or sequence director, who would give it to my directing animator, and together we would talk over the scene with him as to what the requirements are, what he wants the character to do, what it wants to feel, what the emotion of the scene is. Then we would just transfer it onto the drawn image and make it come to life, something like this. Whenever we get the scene from the sequence director, first thing we do is mentally try and picture how the whole thing's going to work. Basically act out the entire scene in our heads, and sometimes if it's too difficult, what we would do is we would actually get a video into the screen room and prance around like the character and tape it to see what it looks like, because you can't always see what way your body's moving.
So with this gator, we tried to deck him out so that he was colored in just the brightest colors, and we used the two colors that are so typical of New Orleans, where he lives, which is the pinks and the greens. And you see that on all the buildings down in New Orleans if you ever go there. So what we did is gave him the real pink lips and lots of pink feathers and the bright green gator body, and tried to dress him up like a swimming star.
What I'm looking at here is the cleaned up version of a picture. I'm looking at cleaned up animation drawings, special effects, the continuity from one scene to another. You can see on the film that there are a jackhammer that's being used as a drill to break our character Charlie out of prison. Roughs are approved and they go into cleanup. And at that time, we try to make all the drawings look like one person did them. Because there's several styles among the animators. So a cleanup crew of about 40 people work on just cleaning up the drawings and make them look like one person has touched all of these drawings. The problems for the animators themselves is to make the audience believe that the character's alive and thinking, that the expressions are real.
This is the final stage of production where all the elements come together for the production color shot. We start with the background being down on the camera bed firstly, and then we put all the different elements on top of that, starting with the effects levels, the character levels, and then some more special effects levels on top of that. That will make up one frame of the production. We'll shoot 24 frames a second, and for this particular scene, the camera can follow the action so that we see the character panning across to the left-hand side of the screen.
Let's make music together. Let's make sweet harmony.
Oh, let's make music together, baby. Let's make sweet harmony. Oh, let's make, this is for you, mama.
In any kind of theater, the most important ingredient is that willing suspension of disbelief. You have to believe it's really happening. If you don't, you never get involved and you never feel real emotions. So we try and hide all of us artists in the wings someplace so you can't see us, and we can't let our paintbrush marks show, nor our pencils. So it's realistic, but it's also very romantic.
All Dogs Go to Heaven opens next week, and so